today will be able to see what we talked about. So today's online cafe is about nematology, and we have two guest speaker that I'm very happy to introduce you. We will start with Dr. Nancy Ntidi. Dr. Ntidi holds a PhD in crop protection from Northwest University. She's a researcher at the Agricultural Research Council in South Africa, and she has 24 years of experience. Her research focus is on grain crops, particularly maize and staple food in South Africa, but also vegetable, wheat, and African leafy vegetable, as well as industrial crop. Nancy is committed to raising awareness about the impact of nematodes on the crop production, empowering farmers, and driving scientific progress. So, Nancy, please share your screen and introduce us to the world of nematology in South Africa.
Thank you, Sarah. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
On my site, it's still loading. Just a second.
Yes, no worries.
Put on presentation.
Maybe we can all switch camera while Nancy is presenting so that she gets more connectivity.
Hi, everyone. Sarah did introduce myself, so I will just go straight into the presentation. Today is just to give an overview of what we are busy with on this site, particularly on my site, what is a description of my day-to-day work scenario. So I'm not sure of the audience, but I guess I will just need to do the basics so that I explained when we are talking or referring to plant nematode, what is it that we are talking about? They are commonly described as microscopic roundworm, but they will need soil, water, and plant tissue for survival. However, when it comes to the impact of nematodes towards the crop, it's not the same. There are nematodes that are classified as the beneficial one because they play a beneficial role in the soil. And there are those that we refer to as pathogenic or parasitic ones. Those are the ones that cause or crippled the crop by feeding on the roots. For today's topic, my main focus will be on the pathogenic one, whereby we will be looking at the importance of the pathogenic one and the impact and the role they play in the soil. However, it is always important or crucial, whether as a scientist or as a producer, a farmer, to know and understand what is it that you are dealing with. Be able to distinguish between the two. When it comes to farming status in South Africa, I assume globally. However, in South Africa, farming is the backbone of our economy. So it can never be business as usual if our yields continue to decline. And the status of declining, or when the yields are going down, it can only mean two things, particularly when it refers to the sub-Saharan Africa. It can only mean that our food and nutrition security will be compromised, leading to human malnutrition. The increasing global population growth is estimated at 9.7 billion by 2050. But will our production be able to meet the demand? Whether for export, should I continue? I hear an echo in the background.
No, I think we can. I can hear you fine from my hand.
Okay. Yes. So the question that remains us will be, does our production meet the demand? Will we be able to feed the nation that is growing? Will we be able to build our economy to meet the demand of exporting? And if the response is no, what could be the contributing factors? And when it comes to crop pest, mainly the limiting factor when it comes to crop production will be the obvious one, which is the insects, the disease, as well as the weeds. Since we know weeds, we're not only looking at the competition that they create, however, we look also, since they can be harboring the pest that we are trying to manage in our field for sustainability. However, there are nematodes that are rarely mentioned when we discuss crop protection or crop pest. Nematode is not only a challenge to farmers to be able to relate to, but even amongst us as scientists, because they lack obvious above ground symptoms compared to insects, compared to diseases or weeds. They say seeing is believing. So it's very difficult to believe on something that you can't really see with your naked eye. However, the damage that are caused by nematodes towards the crop are usually, in most cases, attributed to other growth limiting factors. And the nematode negatively affect crop growth, quality, as well as yield. The yield losses has been reported to range from 12% up to 60%. And usually on the field, it's the situation whereby we look only above ground. We never dig underneath. And in my country, this is not a unique situation. The risk is higher than anticipated by producers because it poses a constraint to local producers since the focus is always above ground. From the South African perspective, our farming system is very diverse. We got whereby we have household, subsistence, smallholder, and commercial. And they are mainly categorized in the size where they produce. And obviously at the household level is whereby it will be only for consumption, for survival of the family. And with a bigger family, that space or problem is not big enough to sustain them. And when it comes to the practices also, it ranges from monoculture, minimum tillage, up to conservation agriculture. The same when it comes to majority are only relying on rain-fed kind of a practice, while there are those at the commercial level that produce under irrigation system. And how do we keep up with times as nematologists to know what is happening where? We rely mainly on the nematode surveys that we conducted. But the challenge on the survey itself is funding. As you are aware, for you to move from one place to another, you need money. So far it has been public and private funders that are rooting behind it, but it's still a challenge because nematology on its own, canvassing or submitting proposal is a mission. So when it comes to grain, the majority of the activeness of the survey is mainly at a commercial level and on the grain production. The initiatives that I was involved in is those ones that started in 2007, whereby there were private entities that pump money into it for it to be able to happen. When it comes to the smallhold and food gardens, it's the one that was focusing on the wheat and African leafy vegetables associated with nematode. And that one was from 2004 to 2009, whereby target was 69 fields in the 9 provinces in the country. Currently, we are still running the one that focus on the semi towards commercial produce, whereby it kickstarted in 2018, and we are still on that one. Another thing that really keep up with the latest events and happenings is raising awareness and technology transfer. The interaction that we continuously kept amongst the farming community, whereby we have information days where we interacted with farmer and other stakeholders. We have a slot in radio and television broadcast to be able to raise awareness. The on-farm trials and demonstration, we mainly use them to when we attempt the management strategies for our farmers. That's when now we focus more into the demonstration or on-farm trials, as well as the publication, both scientific and non-peer-reviewed one. The pattern that has been observed for the past 6 years when it comes to the occurrence of nematodes for both semi and commercial producers is whereby there was a pattern whereby root knot nematode seems to be the most predominant one on the field, followed by the reniform and the lesion nematode. And we have, for the past 6 years, we can now attest to it that the root knot nematode population, they build up over time, if not managed. And eventually, whatever it is that is produced there, the whole production thing will collapse. And only then, that's when now the producers will reach out and seek help. It is dominant, the interaction, particularly between root knot nematode and lesion nematode on maize-based rotation, whereby it's only, in most cases, it's a monoculture where it's maize year in, year out. And the occurrence percentage are very high in the sandy soil compared to loam or clay soil. And the disasters are occurring mainly on the monoculture practices, whereby there's no follow-up crop, there's no rotation. On the further side, those are the families of nematodes that we've seen them to be abundant on our production field. And what are we busy with at this current moment? The research focal point is on the crops that we classify them as underutilized crops. And the research that involves nematology there is whereby the focal point is on the pigeon pea, as well as the African leafy vegetables being the amaranth, solanum, cockerus, and cleome. When it comes to the research and particularly for nutrition, a lot has been done on these crops. But really, when it comes to pest associated and the impact, the information is still limited. Another one that we are doing is whereby we look at the cover crops as an alternative crops, whereby in case whereby farmers, due to limitation of access to equipment, when they are rotating, which crops can they use? And that is aligned on our strategies management, particularly for potatoes and grains. For instance, for grains, those farmers who have livestock, what is it that when they rotate, they can put as a cover crop in order to have a fodder for their livestock. Another one is the one that I will say is it has been the longest, that's something that we have been preaching for the whole time, that we need long-term research project. And this one is for the grain, whereby we look at the pest interaction. This year is the 7th year of this project running, and it's in partnership with Prof. Sandra Lamprecht, a pathologist, whereby we look at the interaction between nematodes and fungi. Because in most cases, we treat crop pests as in isolation, whereas on the roots or underneath the soil, they interact. There is interaction that is happening there. The newer baby on the board is the one for the industrial crop, whereby we are looking at the hemp and cannabis. It is a new one that is hardly a year running, but I really love it because it is a crop of interest. A lot has been done when it comes to pharmaceutical, but when it comes to crop pest, the crop has been under restrictions, and now we got an opportunity to explore and find out what could be the interactions, and are there ones that can be regarded as tolerant towards nematode. But one of the reasons why I like this one, for a change, it started, and later on when I joined it, it was whereby the nematode has demonstrated the impact that irrespective of how tiny pathogens they are, they do have an impact on the industry. It was not good. It was to view as the frustration whereby some trials has been collapsed due to high infestation of nematodes. And for a change, we don't need to preach and convince people how important nematodes are. And for a change, we've been recognized, and yeah, the rest is history. So I'm looking forward. The interaction or the collaboration, I think, is going to be smooth, because we're not going to force ourselves to convince the team that nematodes do play a role. They have witnessed it where they lose some of the experimental trials. The challenges that we came across is the climate change and the weed infestation in our field. When it comes to climate change, we've seen unusual high rainfalls on the wrong time. And that on its own, it increases the difficulties that the farmers are facing of controlling weeds, because they lose access to go into the field. Another challenge is mentorship. We lack mentorship, people with expertise on the field that can be able to share those with the young and upcoming one. And another one is whereby we approaching multidiscipline approach. I guess on this one, the funding play a major role, whereby we in most cases, the relation is not healthy, and limited information and lack of knowledge when it comes to farmers. And in our case in South Africa, it's mainly our smallholder farmers. The gap is still huge. However, the capacity is limited to reach everyone. We struggle when it comes to access to funding, especially for long-term research studies, because when it comes to management, 3 years, there's nothing that you can do in 3 years' time. By 3 years, the only information that you have an idea on what occurs where and where are the risks. Another problem that the challenges that mainly our producers are facing is whereby land ownership versus tenure. Majority are on a tenure, a contract, but it's not always the agreement is honored. Farmers find themselves stranded comes time to planting. And One of the challenges is for the relevant implements, particularly for farmers who would like to start doing crop rotation and apply concept of conservation agriculture. Our infrastructure, it goes hand in hand with climate change. We find it very difficult to reach to our farmers and them as well to reach their product to the market. Is a mission due to the status of our roads. The lesson that I learned throughout the journey is this is a very competitive environment. Maybe that's why the young upcoming, they don't belong. They come in and they can't keep up. It is a very competitive environment, and funds play a major role towards that environment. We still need a holistic approach, particularly when it comes to deliverance of technology transfer and awareness raising. We need to be on a better space whereby we package the information in the right manner at the right level, depending on producers that we are handing it to. Because sometimes it seems like too much information that are not nicely packaged cause confusion towards the receiver. The good thing throughout the journey is whereby we see a high number of youth entering the industry. But it's still, we need to enhance the role that are played by women. There's a project that I did indicated that is on the 7th year. We've worked for 7 years with 38 farmers, but out of 38, it was only one woman who owned a farm, or that farm is under her ownership. Another lesson that is learned is that change is very uncomfortable. But transformation needs to occur in order for us to complement our findings. Mentorship still needed to improve the focus group, which are farmers. They got groups that they group themselves accordingly, as well as what are ways that we are failing to do to be able to attract the youth. When it comes to conclusion and recommendation, a need to exist to increase agricultural efficiency and productivity if we want to keep up with the growing population number. The ongoing surveys are crucial because that's the only time that we know what incidence or occurrence of nematode occur where. A shift in attitude and practice have to occur for us to be able to see this change that we want. Interaction should continuously be initiated amongst farming community, the scientists, farmers, the industry, seed companies. We need to be in a position whereby we hold hands and be able at the end of the day to execute the goal to sustain the production. Our research findings the final destination shouldn't be only scientific articles, but it should be in a position whereby it influences decision makers as well as policies. We need monitoring and evaluation continuously. And the following organizations are recognized and acknowledged for the contribution they made for today to happen and for all the acquired output that I have shared with you. Thank you. You are muted, Sarah. Let me stop sharing. I can't hear you guys. I don't know if it's from my side.
I also don't hear.
Yeah, I can hear her as well.
Is it better now? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. Yes, thank you very much for this presentation and for underlining the importance of raise awareness towards nematology. As my colleague Onasmus has put in the chat, we will be collecting questions. We have session of question and answer planned for the end of the presentation. So now we can move to the next presentation with Dr. Yasinta Nzogela. Yasinta is an expert in agriculture and horticulture. She specialized in applied nematology. She earned a PhD in Bioscience Engineering from Ghent University, and her interests lie in soil health, pest, and disease interaction. Particularly in the context of soil ecosystem, biologically based control of nematodes, pest, and the application of biotechnology in pest management for crop production. She's serving as a lecturer at the Department of Crop Science and Horticulture at Sokoine University of Agriculture in Tanzania. So Yasinta, please turn on your camera and share your presentation. We are looking forward to delve into the world of nematology in Tanzania. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Can you see my screen?
Yes, thanks.
Okay. As Sarah introduced me, I'll be sharing a very short story about the discovering of potato cyst nematode in Tanzania. As we all know that potato is very important crop worldwide, but in Tanzania is also as a third food crop to maize and rice. And in Tanzania, potato is produced to major two zones. There is a southern highland zone, which covers like three major regions, which is located in the southern highland of the Tanzania. But also there is a northern highland zone, which cover major two region, Kilimanjaro and the Arusha in Tanzania. Those are two major zones which are producing potato. But there are other areas where also potato are being produced, like around the lake zone, Kagera region and Tanga region in the northeast, and other few places like here in Morogoro where I am. So it's very important crop for food, but also for money. Is used to get money for the farmers, but also for other who are engaged in the processing industry. As we know, the potato has a very long value chain. And coming to the real situation, most of the farmers who are engaged in the crop, they are smallholders. Although there are big companies upcoming and there is a lot of investors coming in to invest in potato industry, ranging from the processing unit to the cold storage facilities and to the manufacturing of other products like starch from the potato. And coming to the side of smallholders, most of the people who are engaged are youth and the women. As you can see here, They are the major who are acting in the value chain, and especially as a primary producer of potato. On average, mainly in our country, we are lagging behind a bit, although our colleague, our neighboring countries like Kenya and Uganda, were a bit higher in the tonnage. But potentially, we can be even much higher. We can reach 15 up to 25 tonnage per hectare. And in our country, the major market for potato, especially for food, is the big city, which is Dar es Salaam. And currently, we have the information that per day, about 35 to 50 trucks in the market having potato. So there is a big potential for investment because there is money. People are selling and people are buying a lot of potato, and most of them also are taken out like for outside market, like in the islands nearby our country, but also around the neighboring country like Congo, Burundi, even Kenya. We are exporting a lot even to Southern Sudan. So basically, the crop is very important, and it has been attracting a lot of investment. So why these nematodes? As my colleague who have just finished the presentation, these nematodes are worms, and most of the time they are hidden ones. You can't see them by naked eyes. So you need a special technique to be able to see them. The only thing you can see is above ground symptoms, which in most cases, they are more or less similar to other typical symptoms for example, for nutrient deficiency and for other diseases. But for these potato cyst nematode, they are more special because they are of quarantine importance. What does it mean? It means that whenever they are, they pose a great impact on the ecosystem, but also on the aspect of business, and therefore they are treated in a special manner. And in so doing, when you have that problem, there are some regulations to be followed in order to handle the problem. Unfortunately, in Tanzania, the nematology field is still under infant stage, I can say. For example, here at Sokoine University of Agriculture, I'm alone trying to raise up others and holding hands and trying to inspire others to join the career. But yeah, it's not easy, and you need a lot of courage, you need a lot of resource, and you need also a lot of helping hands. Therefore, based on that, with the nematode programs in Tanzania, there is not much have been done as a research, and therefore no much information to be found concerning the nematodes. So based on that, I came across one of my colleagues who is at the Tanzania Research Institute, TARI, and she told me about the nematode problem in the farmers' field, especially in the Northern Highland, Kilimanjaro and the Arusha region. And when we met, she could explain that she suspected there are nematode problems, but she's not sure and she haven't confirmed because she doesn't know how to go about it, how to diagnose it. And she was very happy meeting me that I'm a nematologist and I can help you with that problem. So as you can see here in this picture, these are the cysts on the root of potato, and that's how they look like. They are like small, roundish, brownish, swelling organisms, which basically, when they are cysts, outside they are dead, but inside they carry living organisms, and those are small worms which you cannot see them by naked eyes. So after having that story from my colleague from the Tanzania Research Institute, we set it together and we strategize how to go about diagnosing that problem. And what we were looking at, when you look at the cyst, the obvious symptom, which you can see, is the patches growth of the crop. When you go to the field, you find there is uneven growth of the crop, even though the crop are treated at the same situation. So that's the obvious symptom for the nematode infestation, being root node nematode or being potato cyst nematode or any other species of nematode. But particularly for this root node nematode and cyst nematode, thus stunted growth and patches is the typical symptom for their prevalence. And another thing which you can observe is the juvenile. These juvenile, they are the worms. They are living ones. They move from one area to the other, although their movement is very minimal, but they're the ones which affect the root. They're the ones which sense the root exudates and they move toward the root and they penetrate the root. Once they penetrate, they find a suitable site inside the root and they form a feeding site. And that feeding site is the one which they will be feeding on for the entire of their life on the root. By so doing, they deplete all the nutrients from the plant system, and thereafter, that's why you could see the stunting growth. Typical symptom for nutrient deficiency is due to the depletion of the nutrient. But once they find this site and they start feeding, they develop into a further stage whereby you have the J3 and J4, and the further development comes to the adult whereby you have the complete cyst. And this cyst is the female, which grows. After growing, it reproduces without fertilization. It doesn't need a male to reproduce. It harbors a lot of eggs, and those eggs are insisted with the very hard coat from the female. So that female, after having the eggs and the life cycle ends, it dies. But once it dies with a lot of eggs and juvenile inside its body. And those eggs and the juvenile, they can survive within this cyst for more than 10 years without host. So that's the very big advantage for them, but very big challenge for us scientists, especially nematologists, when it comes to handling of these cystic nematodes. So in the soil, you could find these juvenile and you could see them on the microscope and you could extract them and do whatever you want. Another typical symptom which you can see is the obvious cyst now on the root. So once those cysts are died, you can see them on the root like this, protruding outside the root. And if you have very good vision, you can see them by naked eyes. But with the binocular, you can see them very well. So those are typical symptoms for this nematode. So the cyst hernia have been reported elsewhere around in East Africa. Tanzania is not the first one. It has been reported in Kenya, especially for the East African region. That was the first report from Kenya. And we have the report from Rwanda, and then we have a report from Uganda. So it's like the invasion has been spread all over the East African. So for Tanzanian, we haven't yet heard about it. But now, after investigation, which I have done, I have seen that the problem exists. So after having all those information from my colleague from Tanzania Research Institute, and what I came up with is to write a small project and find the fund from my Sokoine University of Agriculture, And I submitted the proposal. After submitting the proposal, I had to wait for the funds. And after some times, I got the news that my proposal goes through and I will be getting the fund to carry out that research. But unfortunately, as we know that sometimes you can have this good news and then you keep on waiting for the fund to come at hand. And that has been a challenge for us, especially in developing countries. So I got the news that I have succeeded and my project will be funded, but the fund was not there on time. So I was in the dark room waiting for the fund for the first month, second month, third month, fourth month, until the whole year of 2023 finished without having any fund, without having any promising to come out with something. So I said, okay, it's fine, but life has to continue. I started searching for fund, and my quench was that, like, the problem is there, but we have to diagnose it very clearly and to come up with very scientific information about the problem. But I don't have fund at hand. What should I do? So I was searching and looking for different alternatives, and fortunately, I came to learn about this Open Door Fellowship, whereby the fellowship is there to help the female to stay in their path of research, but also they have very special section whereby a scientist, a female scientist, will have to stay in Belgium to conduct her research for 3 months at the selected lab. So I was really very happy to get to know that there is that chance. And Professor Rola Kodata is the one who connected me with the fellowship. And then I was connected to Professor Wimbet Lab in Ghent, Belgium, whereby I was able now to carry out the clear diagnosis and the investigation about the potato cyst nematodes. So I, with the little resource I had, the open door became as a light through the tunnel, and then I could see that I could be able to solve the problem using that chance of staying for 3 months in Professor Wimbet lab. So what I did collect sample from the farmers field. This is the sample collection at West Kilimanjaro. And I did collect also samples from farmers field at Arumeru district in Arusha region. And I took those samples with me to Belgium in Professor Wimbet lab. And in the lab, I was able to extract the nematodes using different technique. And I could be able to extract the cyst at the cyst, as you can see here. And I could be able to extract the juvenile also from the soil. Using the equipment and the facilities in Professor Wimbet lab, I was able now to do all the quantification of the cyst, the number of cysts. And as you can see here from this graph, the infestation is not so much higher, but the situation is alarming. Having 96 number of cysts per 100 ml of soil is not a good news. So that is above the threshold of number of cysts per 100 ml of soil. So this was the site I visited, the village I collected the soil samples, and I could be able to quantify the number of cysts per each village from the field I visited. And that was done also to see if that number of cysts which are there, are they really causing significant yield loss? According to some of the information, you can see that definitely 96 number of cysts per 100 ml of soil is beyond the threshold. Normally is 80 cysts per 100 ml of soil. That is the threshold. So one of the field, as you could see from the graph, is having 96 number of cysts, which is not good news. Having those cysts, I could now combine the morphological information with the molecular information, coming up with a clear identity. I could extract the do morphometrics for all the parameters which are required to have the true identity of the pest. And I could come up with a morphometric for the juvenile and a morphometric for the cyst itself, and combining these morphometrics with the molecular information, which was done on different regions. I did sequence the ITS region and the 28th region and the COI region from the mitochondria to get the true identity of the nematode. So combining all this information, as you can see from the phylogenetic tree, all these sequence bolded, they are from Tanzania, and they are all aligning with the Globodella lostokiensis from elsewhere. So having this information, we could conclude that the problem we were having in the potato field from the north zone, Kilimanjaro and the Arusha region was Globodella lostokiensis. That was well confirmed. And with this one, we have already written the manuscript for the submission, and it will be submitted at the end of this month. And I have already followed up all the information for the official registration and the official reporting of the problem at the Ministry of Agriculture in collaboration with the authority which is entitled for the phytosanitary in the country, that is Tanzania Plant Health and the Pesticide Authority, TPHPA. What is the way forward? What should we do? Who will win this? Winning the race needs a holistic approach. As my colleague has said, that nematology aspect, most of time is not an isolated problem. It's a problem which is sometimes mingled with the other problem, but the approach to management need also the integration of different aspects. In this case, with the potato cyst nematode, is even harder because it's a quarantine nematode. So there are a lot of regulation to be followed because it has an implication on the business, but also it has an implication on the seed system. So management approach will really be based on prevention. And with the prevention, we have to know where there is a problem and where is still safe. Knowing that will give us a way to eliminate the area for the production of the seeds so that we have clean seeds, but also imposing some internal regulation to prevent further spread from the area which is already infested. That has been taken care very carefully by talking and discussing with the people from the Tanzania Plant Health and the Phytosanitary Authority. And we are in a good way of handling the problem, first by mobilizing the resources and have the resources for doing that delineating survey. But also awareness creation, the people from the government, especially extension officers who are dealing with the farmers at those areas, and the farmers themselves, they have to be aware of the problem. And there we need also resources to create the awareness to the farmers and the extension officers so that we can prevent the further spread. Reducing the populations of the already infested field is another alternative. whereby we will have to really manage the population by telling the farmer how to go about crop rotation and prevent further buildup of the problem. As I said, potato seeds sector has to be reshaped because otherwise it will be a good chance to spread the problem. Monitoring and evaluation is very important so that we manage the problem. So by this, we have already agreed with the people from BHPA that we will develop a proposal together, and we have a green light from the Dutch embassy, the Netherlands embassy in Tanzania. They are willing to fund us in dealing with the problem. And so we are now on the process of developing the proposal and submitting for the fund from the Netherlands embassy. Those are my story from potato cyst nematodes, and I would like to thank the organizing of this online cafe, Sarah and the team from VIB, but also very important, Professor Wim's lab and the members of the lab, especially Joseph Omagwa and Majorin, who were in hand with me when I was doing the research in their lab. But very special thanks to Professor Laura Kodata, the coordinator of the Open Door Fellowship Program, where I was able to get the chance and stay in Belgium for a short research stay. And I would like to thank my institution, Sokoine University of Agriculture, for granting me the chance to go in Belgium and do my research over there. I would like to thank all of you who are online for listening to this talk. Thank you very much.
Fellowship. And indeed, the two presenters we had today are currently fellows of the cohort of the Open Doors Fellowship Program started in 2024. So thank you very much for your presentation. I saw there are already some questions in the chat. I would suggest that we start addressing those, and then as the participants might have more questions, don't hesitate to raise your hands or write it down in the chat. I would suggest if the speaker Yasinta Nancy, you can turn on your camera and have the microphone on as we are addressing the question. Thanks. Okay, the first one is from Abdul Zubari. He's asking if there is any way to sterilize the soil in the light of the fact that nematodes can be dormant for even 10 years.
Yeah, I think I would respond, but first of all, I thank him for the nice question. It's very fascinating with the cyst nematodes. Unfortunately, sterilizing the soil is not a very, very feasible way, because before that was the perfect way of treating the nematodes, of dealing with the nematode. That we had the fumigants, which were used to sterilize the soil and keeping the population at very low level and therefore having no problem. But most of those fumigants have been banned out. They are not anymore in the market and they are not allowed to be used. So we are now relying on different alternative way, especially biofumigation. There are some crops which can be used in the rotation process, And those crops, the research are still going on, but there are some which have been already identified that can be used as a good fumigants. They are grown in the circle of rotation, and once they reach a certain age, they are chopped and incorporated in the soil. And there seems to be very very good one to control the nematodes, but still we need more and further research on their management because those crops sometimes it depends on the environmental condition and the soil condition as well for them to do a good job. Currently, the crops like the group this group of cabbage kind of, they are good ones in producing the gas which can be used to reduce the nematode population. But most of the farmers, when you advise to use those crops, they are reluctant because most of them, they need a crop which has a value. They can sell, they can get money out of it. So that's the aspect which brings challenge when you are to advise the farmers to use those alternative crops which can help to the population of the nematodes. But yes, in worst cases, when you have very high infestation, you could advise farmers, especially when you have these commercial farmers who are really going for commercial production and they know the disadvantage of all the damage caused by the nematodes. They are using those crops to reduce the numbers. Although that's not the only way to do it, other alternative also is to rotate with the non-host crops. So you can use, like for the potato cyst nematode, they are so specific to potatoes. They can't affect maize, they can't affect wheat. So because potatoes are grown at the high altitude where you can grow wheat, where you can also grow some maize varieties. So we would advise them to rotate the potato with the wheat, for example. Yeah, I think I have responded to his question.
Thank you very much. Another question still for you, Yasinta, is are there potato cyst nematode resistant potatoes varieties that can be adopted?
Yes, there are varieties, but currently in Tanzania, not. But the varieties are there. There are some varieties which are resistant to potato cyst nematode, though that resistance also sometimes, if not handled very well, it can break down. But yes, there are some potato varieties which are resistant to nematode. And that's, in fact, for example, in our countries where farmers are not so much highly in resources, the resistant variety is the first line for the management of this nematode. If you get a variety which is resistant and the farmers are willing to use that variety, it can be a very good way to manage these nematodes. The challenge is sometimes the farmers have their own preference with these varieties. There are varieties which are grown for just for consumption, boiling for starch. There are varieties which are special for example, for French fries, and there are varieties which are special for making these crepes and whatever. So those varieties, they have also different qualities, and the farmers, they have their preference for those varieties. So sometimes this disease resistance, most of the time they are in compromise with those qualities which are preferred by farmers. So yes, if you have the resistant variety, is the first line and is a good way to advise the farmers to go for it.
Okay, thank you very much. Another question, which I think is still addressing to you. is on the diagnosis side, is there a way of developing a quick kit that can give us information on nematodes quickly?
Currently not. Sorry. Quick, how quick is it? It will depend on the situation. But yes, within a day you can diagnose, and you can know if you have this kind of speech or that kind. But if he's asking on the sense like if you have something, you can just drop the drops of the reagent and get the information. Not yet. We don't have yet that for the nematode diagnosis. But yes, with time, I think the technology is advancing. We will be there. Like the other diseases, like virus or the fungus, you can go in the field with you take the leaf sample, you grind, you drop, use the immunostrips, you diagnose very fast. With the nematode, we are not yet there, but I think, yeah, we are heading there. But within a day, yes, you can diagnose the nematode and tell this is so species, so species.
Okay, thanks. So something to keep in mind for the future. Now, a question for Nancy. So, in South Africa, is there resistance cultivars against potato cysts? If yes, can it is it possible to share for evaluation in Tanzania for breeding purposes?
Thanks, Sarah. I wouldn't really go with the term resistant, but I would rather say there are cultivars that are tolerant. By tolerant, I mean they can, a producer can still reach a yield in the presence of nematodes in the field. So there's the difference one. And yes, even with potato, depending on the scale that you are producing at, there are the same consideration when it comes to rotating. You need to apply it. And mainly when it comes to the potato production, I think what usually harms farmers is not going for certified seed. Instead, you just opted to lower the cost and go for a certain potato that is available towards you, which is a gambling. So at this stage, there are potato cultivars that are available, they are certified, and they are tolerant. You can still be reaching your target yield following your planting or production program. That's it.
Okay, thank you so much. I think we can still take the two unanswered question in the chat for the sake of time. So, yes, the first one is if there is any organic soil amendments or biological control that can be used to reduce the population. I think it's still in regards to the potato cyst nematodes.
Yes, most of these nematodes, what they do, they compromise the physiological process of the roots of the plants. And when they attack the roots can't do their normal function. So sometimes these organic amendments, what they do, they create a favorable environment around the root so that even if the root is stressed, it can still survive and absorb the available nutrients. So Currently with the potato cyst nematodes, I'm really not sure if we have a very, very effective biological control or any soil amendments. But yes, any soil amendment can work well with all kind of nematodes, because what it will do, it will create the favorable environment, but also the microbiome around the soil loot will increase or will change, and most of the time for the benefit of the plants. So yeah, organic amendment is one line for their management, and if available, it can be used to manage the population. And most of the time, we have seen that these organic amendments will reduce the nematode infestation. For example, there are a lot of research going on with using this black soldier fly frassy to manage the root knot nematode as well as cyst nematodes. But also we have the technology which is called suicidal technology, is a wrapping technology whereby the potato tuber is wrapped by the sheet made from the banana, and that sheet is polymerized with the nematicides, and once planted in the soil, the tuber with that sheet, the sheet will be releasing the nematicide in microdosage, and that's have proved to work well in Kenya. And I think if registered, it can also be used in other area or in other countries, like for us in Tanzania as well, because its research have been really well done in Kenya, and most of the trials they have done in Kenya, it seems to work very well. And if that registered, it can also be used as a soil amendment or the biological control for these populations of nematodes.
Okay, thanks. And now for the last question, Nancy, do you want to add something? Sorry.
Yes, I wanted to add there on the alternative crops such as brassica.
Yes.
There was someone who was asking, yes, usually depend on the scale of production, but we've used Nemat here in South Africa for cases whereby farmers did abandon their field due to infestation of nematode. What we did, we incorporated the nemat, which is a family of the Brassicae, and we needed alternatives that farmers will have kind of a food source from. And unlike when you are using tagetes, they can't actually feed on it. So we treated it as a rotational crop. And what we did, because the extract or allelopathic content on the plant itself, it was not just only on the roots where they release extract or the leaves, but the flower as well. So when we incorporated it, or the farmers incorporated it, they were feeding on the leaves as a leafy vegetables, but when they reach a flowering stages, they worked it back into the soil, cover it with the soil for 3 to 4 weeks. Then it is followed up by their own preferred vegetables. And it did change the status of the soil itself, even the populations, because it was not the favorable ones towards the nematode. So that's something that, because in most cases, opting for alternative that the farmers don't benefit from it, it becomes a problem. But you do have varieties when it comes to Brassicae, and you can put them as a winter alternative crop. But this nemat, you can put it at any season. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we can stop here. I will share in the chat the contacts of the speakers. So if you still have questions that have been left unanswered, you can contact them via email. And for now, I just wanted to thank you, Yasinta and Nancy, for their presentation and for answering our question, and all of you for taking part in today's online cafe. So with that, I think we can conclude. I will share, as I said, the email contact, and I wish you a nice